Hi, we're in the main office of One Credit Union with Jerry Cross, the longtime president and CEO, about a $132 million operation based here in Springfield, Vermont, serving about 16,000 members in Vermont and New Hampshire. And Jerry, it's great to be here with you today.
Well, thank you very much, Joe. I appreciate this opportunity. It's always a good time to get together, and it sounds like you've got something innovative to give a try to here, so hopefully it works out well.
We're going to give this interview process a shot and hopefully let people learn about their peers around the state, and we'll see how it goes. So thanks for being our first candidate.
Not at all. It's my pleasure.
So you've been here a long time, and we've known each other, well, I won't say how many decades, but quite a few. And so I thought the best place to start is right at the beginning. So why don't you tell us about, how you got involved with credit unions to begin with?
Well, let's see. Shortly after getting out of college, I took a job as in a bank here in Springfield, which dovetailed nicely. I had studied economics extensively in college. That was a real passion of mine. And I thought, hey, there's a chance to maybe get some use out of it, sort of thing. And I worked in a bank for 2.5 years, and then was going to get married and realized, I actually have to get a real job where I can make some money. So I went into machine tool, and which was very, very strong in Springfield at that time. And I was there about, I think, literally a week or a week and a half when Dick Dodge, who was the president of the Bryant Credit Union Board at that time, heard that I had some banking experience, and he just thought, oh, this is a godsend. So approached me about joining the credit union, serving on the supervisory committee, and I had no idea what a credit union was, but I could see where maybe I can help these guys out a little bit as far as some of what limited experience I had. So I started on the supervisory committee and just got real involved with the credit union right off the bat. I was just soaking up as much as I could possibly find about this. Decided I had to be on the board. I wanted to have a hand in that. I was working closely. Our credit union was so small at the time. It was run by a single person. It was incredibly small. I've seen closets larger than our office was. And so I got on the board and was making some of the decisions, and you'll recall back in the early 80s, this was an exciting time in credit union land because we were bringing on share drafts, and that was really the inception of a lot of the core processes and a lot of the services that we are still offering today. And so I was helping out, and they decided they wanted, they meaning the board, wanted to do a lot more with it. And so they looked at me and said, would you be willing to be a full-time manager? And with what was happening in machine tool at that time, I decided to take the leap of faith, and I did, and it's worked out very well.
And next thing you know, you're running $132 million.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was took a little bit of time, but it was a cool thing to see the progress up through. We started out as a single sponsor of just Bryant Grinder. We could see that their business cycle, we were in joined at the hip with them, and that was not exactly what we wanted to experience. So I encouraged the board that we needed to go to select employee groups, and over the course of the next few years, we added about 300 select employee groups around the area. And that took off, and for us exploded. We found that we've got to have a bigger office, and we did that 2 or 3 iterations of that, and we've landed here. And then of course came the merger with United and Champlain Valley, which is a story unto itself as well.
So what do you think, Jerry, over all your 30 plus years at running First Bryant and One Credit Union now as it's known, there's a lot of different accomplishments you've had here in this credit union and a lot of change you've seen over the years. But what stands out in your mind as, some of the bigger milestones, or maybe the biggest milestone that you're especially proud of, or the biggest thing that happened over those years?
Well, for me, it certainly has to be serving the membership, and that is not to sound corny in the least, but I I know for a fact that we've touched lives, and this is common throughout, I would venture, any credit union. We've touched lives, we've made differences. I recall, excuse me, one time when we were just in the machine tool part of that of our life, and the machine tool industries, and they were pretty big, were going to go on strike. And I had an ex-banker working for me, and we knew the strike was going to happen. And so I went to him one morning and I said, okay, strike's going to happen, so you know what we're going to do for these, with these members, right? And he goes, oh, absolutely. We're not giving these guys a nickel, until they get off strike. I said, yeah, that's exactly wrong. We will give them anything they need to keep going. This was in the middle of the winter. They needed to heat their homes. They needed to keep the cars going, so on and so forth. He was just appalled, thinking, what are we thinking of? But that's exactly what we did. And the strike was settled a number of weeks later, and the members reacted in such a fashion because we were the only institution, Joe, in Springfield that was offering positive financial help to these people, and they did not forget it. And that is exactly what this industry is about. It's building loyalties and it's building trust. And I mean, we've got a lot of accomplishments here. We've got an incredible team of people that have worked with me throughout the years. But clearly the thing that when I retire, I'm going to look back on with fondness will be the fact that we made a difference in some people's lives.
That's a great story, Jerry.
Thanks.
And you hear that kind of thing in credit unions through the years frequently about making a difference in people's lives and the philosophy of credit unions.
Yeah.
That's a real life example of it.
It is.
So
yeah.
It's not just lip service.
And that's that's one of the things that, and you and I, like you mentioned, we've known each other a long time, and we've got a lot of us in this state right now that are in the same boat. We kind of started, or we entered into this industry at about the same time. We've got some pretty significant changes happening here. I think one of the most important things we can do is to try to extend out what our heritage is to the people that are coming on board now. That they may be, and they are, very, very skilled from a technical standpoint, but they've got to understand where we came from, who we are. Because that's the link. That's what keeps it going. Rather than just being a cooperative and, oh, that's nice sort of thing. They got to understand you're here for a bigger reason than that.
So that brings up a good point, Jerry, because a lot of change over 30 plus years of working in credit unions, and you started yourself from a volunteer position, and grew with the credit union over those 3 decades. Mm-hmm. But today the story is a little bit different. There's a lot more regulatory oversight of credit unions. There's a lot more complexity to the credit unions. You have to do things and to be competitive to get consumer business, your members' business. That's a lot different than it was so many years ago. And so a lot of credit unions across the country, end up they can't, bring people along and tutor them in all positions in the credit union. So a lot of them, as you all know, are, having to reach out and look for the best expertise that they can get in whether it's compliance or technology or running the credit union itself, like in your position. And so we've seen, as you know, in recent years, recent decade probably, an increasing number of people coming into credit unions in leadership positions that didn't grow up with the credit union philosophy like you have and had and developed over those years. And so they may have come from a for-profit background, which is fine, which is good. Yeah. They have this needed expertise and whatnot, but their mindset might be a little bit different. So what impact do you think that, the growing number of people from for-profit minded versions of credit unions have on credit union operations overall, and how they deal with member situations as you were describing?
That's a valid point. First of all, I think that's important that we integrate that sort of level of talent. It's back 35 years ago, 37 years ago when I first got involved, it was very common to develop your management team organically. We all learned the products from the ground up. We don't have that luxury in large measure any longer. And we can't forget the whole idea that we right now, some of our best leaders in our credit unions in Vermont serve from those types of organizations. I simply had a little bit of banking experience, but you've got Jeff Morse that worked for a savings and loan, and others as well that come from a banking background. John Benoit's another good example. These are fine people. I don't think just the concept that they work in bank taints anybody in the least. It's up to the people. They got to have the heart. They got to be in it for the right reason, and it works out well. We found in recent years there are times when you just have to go out and get that level of professionally developed talent elsewhere. It just is the way it is.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So, any comment or thoughts on how you take the best talented people that you hire to fulfill a job like that, and how do you successfully, instill the values and the philosophies that you've acquired over all of these years in someone that's working in that for the very first time?
It does require. First of all, you got to hire the right people. They've got to have the right heart. People are by and large mostly good, and you bring them in, and over time, there will be instances where a credit union way of doing things will become clearly evident, to where they may say, well, we didn't used to do that in the bank or something like that. And you take those opportunities to teach and to instill in them as to, well, this is kind of like why we do it this way. This is where we came from. It has, accomplished this for us in the past. And you really kind of need to develop that philosophy with them so that they see that, serving those members is what it's all about. It's not just idle chatter. And when they see the difference that you really start making in those people's lives, they start latching onto it as to, okay, this is starting to make sense. It just goes hand in glove.
Good points.
Yeah.
Can we talk about what's ahead for credit unions a little bit for just a minute?
Sure.
You've seen all this change over all of these years, so look forward. And I don't know if you have another 35 or 7 years to go, but at least over the next, 10 years or so, what do you think things are going to look like, whether here at one credit union or in the bigger credit union movement?
Yeah. It's getting increasingly harder to make money because of, legislative changes, the competition, the competitive landscape, captive companies are remaining much more competitive as far as their side of the equation is concerned. The regulatory piece is not just something that is burdensome inside of trying to find the time to fulfill those requirements, but certainly it becomes a dollar decision as well of hiring competent people and then being able to carve out the time they need to get those jobs done. Sometimes it impacts you internally to where it becomes a very real cost. And I just think that it's going to be a challenge. I think the brighter people, the ones that will become highly successful are the ones that are not going to just look at a balance sheet and those products that they currently have developed to say this is where we're going to make our money, but they're going to find very, very innovative ways, probably completely departed away from what we're currently doing, to make money and to be able to differentiate themselves in a fashion that says to a member, that is something that makes sense to me and I want to have a piece of that sort of thing. Heritage Family Credit Union, for example, just I think it was Matt Lewandowski mentioned that they're looking at possibly offering some types of insurances. That's something that is completely innovative to the environment right now. And I think you're going to have a lot more of that to remain really, really viable.
As we've seen just in recent years, a whole lot more development, technology-wise, in the way consumers do their financial business. And I don't know if it's a keeping up with the Joneses situation, but you can't open a publication, industry publication, any day of the week without seeing one or numerous articles about doing your financial services on your smartphone, or so on and so forth. What effect do you think all of that kind of stuff in the future is going to have on your credit union?
Well, we're working in that world right now. The merger wasn't enough pain for us. We decided once we got that done, we've got to put in a new core processing system, and we've got that accomplished. We've got that behind us now. But we're certainly looking out at that electronic piece as far as what role does this play. A lot of people point to it as being a generational sort of thing, and you could certainly make some sense out of that. We take the position that there's always going to be a need for a lobby. There's always going to be a need for a loan officer desk. But that electronic piece for the daily flow is certainly going to take and has taken hold in a big way. That's one of our biggest challenges, is in being able to look at the landscape from a technological standpoint and pick those pieces parts that make sense from a dollar cost standpoint, and what kind of return are we going to get off it, and more importantly, is it going to be able to add some stickiness out to the members so that it provides some value to them to say, this makes sense for me. It's a challenge every day, Joe, and I think in time you're going to have probably a real dichotomy of those credit unions that are just really plain vanilla, that are not going to embrace the technology, and then you're going to have some of those that just fly with it and do great things with it.
That's interesting that you should say that, because every conference that you go to, there's somebody that's standing up predicting the demise of credit unions that don't keep up with whatever the latest fad is.
Yeah.
And it seems like what you just said is the more of that happens, the more role there is for somebody who focuses in one to whatever number of areas and keeps it simple and serves a key function.
Yeah, we see that right now. We still have a lot of very, very small credit unions. One credit union, we're a small credit union. In the state of Vermont, we're a larger credit union, but we're not a large credit union. But we have a little sister credit union across the street here that's probably $6 million, $7 million, and what they do very, very well. And they're not losing their members.
Sure.
They're keeping that loyalty factor up pretty high.
Sure.
So.
Well, great words of wisdom from you and all your insights. And we really appreciate you inviting us into your office here and sharing a little history and all your thoughts with us.
Well, it's a pleasure, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say, a lot of thanks to you and Brian and the group for everything you've done for all the credit unions in the state throughout the year as well.
Thank you very much, Jerry. We appreciate that. And compliments to One Credit Union and to Jerry Cross for the fine work you do here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been great visiting with you.
As well.